Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. Can I get confirmation that the Kansas Open Meetings Act notice was provided?
Yes, I can confirm the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
Thank you. And roll call.
Board Member Cates,
Present.
Board Member Cool,
Present.
Board Member Nelson,
Present.
Vice Chair Herman,
Present.
and Chair Freeland. So with 4 out of 5 members, we have a quorum and we can proceed with business.
Thank you. Are there any question about the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, can I get a motion on that?
I move we approve the minutes from the January 22nd regular meeting.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it is passed. On to new business, item 3.1.
Thank you, Vice Chair Herman. Application CC 25-23 filed by Tiffany Nagel with Gleason Sun Signs on behalf of Crystal Vinters, owner of Era Pilates, is requesting an approval of a certificate of compatibility to allow the installation of one new non-illuminated wall sign located on the entrance and above the entrance, and a series of 6 vinyl window sign panels along the front of the storefront on the building located on the east side of South Santa Fe Avenue. This property that is the subject of this request is legally described as the north half of Lot 113 on Santa Fe Avenue in the original town, now city of Salina. And this property is addressed as 109 South Santa Fe Avenue. Now this is a postponed item that was from the January 8th DRB meeting, so you'll probably recall some of the basics of this application here. And we have attached the January 8th packet in with your packet today. So as far as the nature of the request at this time, the applicant, Tiffany Nagel, on behalf of the property owner, Crystal Vinters, is requesting a certificate of compatibility for a sign package consisting of 1 wall sign and a series of 6 vinyl window sign panels at 109 South Santa Fe. This application was originally heard on January 8th, 2026, and at that meeting, the board postponed the matter to allow the applicant time to submit revised plans that comply with the C4 district sign regulations. As of the writing of this report last week, we had not received any revised plans, and in lieu of revisions, the property owner had submitted a statement on January 27th requesting that the board provide clear direction on zoning interpretations and seeking a conditional approval of the current proposal that you saw on January 8th. We've attached Ms. Vinters' statement as the first attachment in your packet, so you'll find that behind the staff report. When we get into some background, just bringing you up to date at this point, the historical context of the Campbell Building and details of that original request are provided in the January 8th packet. So that's attachment B. That's the second attachment behind the staff report there. On January 8th, 2026, the DRB held a public hearing for application CC 25-23. During that hearing, staff identified that the proposal as presented, which totals approximately 83.6 square feet of sign area, exceeded the maximum allowable sign area for the front facade, which is 50 square feet, per the C4 district sign regulations. The applicant, Tiffany Nagel, agreed with the board to a postponement to allow for the submittal of revised compliant plans. Since the January 8th meeting, staff has maintained active correspondence with the applicant and the property owner to provide technical guidance on those sign regulations. On January 27th, staff provided a sign allowance summary, which is provided as attachment C in your packet, and a highlighted version of the January 8th staff report to ensure that there was no ambiguity regarding the 50 square foot sign limit or sign area limit. So no revised drawings or modifications to the proposal had been submitted at the time the packet was sent out. On January 27th, Ms. Vinters had supplied staff with a written statement that we've attached. Now, just before I go into the staff analysis, you have at your seats a packet that was received from Ms. Vinters after the packet was posted, so that correspondence has been provided and a memo on top of that. So to briefly jump over to that memo, I'll just go ahead and read that. So the following correspondence was received from Crystal Venters, property owner of 109 South Santa Fe Avenue, on the evening of Friday, February 6th, after the Design Review Board packet for February 12th meeting had been posted and distributed to board members. Ms. Venters has identified this submittal as a revised design for the signage proposal at 109 South Santa Fe. Since this information was submitted after the distribution of the hearing packet, staff has not conducted a full review of the proposal shown in that email. And however, based on an initial review of the submitted image and dimensions, the proposal still appears to exceed the maximum allowable sign area for this building frontage, meaning that it would not be in compliance with the C4 district sign regulations. Because staff would not be able to issue a permit for the work as shown, staff's recommendation as provided in the DRB hearing packet for application CC 25-23 remains unchanged. And so I will get into that. I just wanted to fill you in on that additional correspondence, and you're more than welcome to look at that, look through that packet, and take a look at that. So we'll get into the analysis here. This is a bit different than you might typically see, and you probably see that we aren't really addressing the sign package at this point. So I'm kind of reading verbatim on this report just because it's a little bit different. The following information is provided to assist the board in understanding the procedural status of this application and specifically addresses the jurisdictional constraints established by the Salina City Code. So application of section 2-207F. This is within chapter 2, and these are they outline the scope of the DRB and processes and scope of your authority in relation to what staff's role is and how the items you review and how they have to qualify to be able to be heard by the board. Okay. So the threshold issue for this hearing is whether the board has the ability to hear this application, which is governed by Salina Code section 2-207F, which states the following. If the city cannot issue a permit for the proposed work due to obvious noncompliance with the applicable standards of this code, the board shall not hear the application unless, 1, it is modified to comply with said standards, 2, a variance or other comparable relief is granted with regard to such standards, or 3, that the zoning administrator finds that the board review would be helpful in determination of whether a variance or other comparable relief should be granted. Because the applicant has declined to submit revised plans, the proposal remains in obvious noncompliance, as noted in that section of the code, totaling 83.6 square feet of sign area, where 50 square feet is the maximum allowed on the South Santa Fe Avenue building frontage. Staff would not be able to approve or issue a sign permit for the proposed signs because the proposed sign area exceeds the maximum allowable sign area for this property based on the C4 design or district sign regulations. So staff acknowledges that allowing this application to proceed to a hearing without these modifications was a procedural oversight. This occurred as a result of staff's standard practice of seeking voluntary compliance when we encounter compliance issues with the zoning regulations through early coordination, which led to a reliance on the expectation that all necessary technical details would be submitted in a timely manner during the initial review period. However, delays in receiving accurate dimensions for the existing and proposed work hindered staff's ability to finalize the compliance review prior to the original hearing date. Because no such revisions have been submitted to date and the proposal remains in violation of underlying zoning regulations, a decision on its compatibility is premature. Per section 2-207F, the board is prohibited from hearing the application for the purposes of approval or denial of the proposed work until the application includes a code-compliant proposal that would allow the city to issue a permit for the proposed work. So that concludes the staff analysis for today. So I'm going to move into some possible findings of fact. We have provided 3 possible findings in support of postponement and 4 possible findings in support of denial. So I will come back to those in just a moment. I'm going to go to the board alternatives here and just explain the potential actions that are in front of you or that you can choose from today. So option 1 is to postpone consideration of application CC 25-23. The board may postpone the application to a future meeting date to acquire additional information concerning the proposal or to allow the applicant time to submit a compliant proposal for review. During the hearing, the board may provide feedback and advise on any specific modifications to the current proposal to ensure a future submittal meets the board's expectations for compatibility with the downtown design guidelines. The date of the future meeting must be included in the motion. In taking this action, the board may incorporate staff's suggested findings of fact if determined to be appropriate. Option 2 would be denial of the application, and with that, the board may move to deny the application as presented upon making findings of fact for the reasons of denial. For example, citing the fact that the proposal is non-compliant with the zoning ordinance. In taking this action, the board may incorporate staff suggested findings of fact if determined to be appropriate. Now, just to clarify on that denial, that would not be a denial necessarily of the proposal, the proposed design. It's more of a denial based on the fact that it is premature from being heard. So consider that as I read through these findings. And after we're done, I can answer any questions. So findings in support of postponement. The board finds that the application as presented is in obvious non-compliance with the C4 district sign regulations, and per section 2-207F, this deficiency prohibits the Downtown Design Review Board from hearing application CC 25-23. Number 2, the board finds that at the January 8th, 2026 meeting, the applicant agreed to provide revised plans for review at the February 12th, 2026 hearing, but a compliant proposal has not yet been submitted. The board, number 3, the board finds that additional time is required for the applicant to modify the proposal to comply with the C4 district sign regulations, which would then enable the Design Review Board to hear the application and review the proposal for conformance with the downtown design guidelines. Moving into the possible findings in support of denial. 1, the board finds that the application as presented is in obvious noncompliance with the C4 district sign regulations, and per section 2-207F, this deficiency prohibits the Downtown Design Review Board from hearing application CC 25-23. 2, the board finds that the applicant has declined to submit revised plans that would allow for the issuance of a permit. 3, the board finds that a certificate of compatibility cannot be issued for a proposal that cannot legally be permitted under the Salina City Code. 4, the board finds that per section 2-211 4C, the board shall reach a decision of approval or denial at the conclusion of a public hearing unless compelling circumstances warrant a continuance. In this case, the board finds that no such compelling circumstances exist to justify a second postponement, given that the applicant declined to provide revised plans previously agreed upon at the January 8th, 2026 meeting. So moving into staff recommendation, staff recommends option 1 for postponement. This recommendation is based on the city's standard practice of allowing an applicant every reasonable opportunity to modify their proposal to achieve compliance with the code. Since this proposal remains in obvious noncompliance and has not been revised since the January 8th meeting, keeping in mind that there is the additional packet that I provided to you, a decision on its compatibility is premature per section 2-207F. Postponement preserves the board's authority by ensuring that any eventual vote on compatibility is based on a final code-compliant design. In considering the available options, the board should evaluate whether compelling circumstances exist to support an additional postponement. Section 2-211 4C states that the board shall reach a final decision at the conclusion of a public hearing unless compelling circumstances warrant a continuance. If the board determines that the compelling circumstances are not present, the code directs the board to reach a final decision based on the information and materials currently available on the record. Staff's review of the materials submitted to date indicate that the proposal does not demonstrate compliance with applicable code standards or requirements. Therefore, absent the board being able to make findings of fact stating the compelling circumstances warranting postponement, the appropriate decision per section 211 4C would be a motion for denial. So with that, staff is here to answer any questions. And I did also forget to mention at the very beginning, we do have our new city attorney, Patrick Hoffman, in here. He's visiting each of the boards, and so he's getting familiar as part of getting on board, and so we'd like to welcome him here as well. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Does the board have any questions of staff?
I do. Is there any other communication that happened between the applicant and staff besides what was written about? Any
Yes.
other verbal communication, anything you can share that would help us with the intent of the applicant trying to fulfill the obligation that you've requested?
There was a fair amount of back and forth. We included what was directly submitted as statement to the board that was at the request of the applicant to provide to the board. We didn't include all correspondence, but we do have correspondence back and forth. There were numerous emails back and forth to explain the regulations and to send in various formats, explained in emails or attachments and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Is it just a matter of the applicant trying to just fully understand what is being asked, or is there any obstacles other than that that would be pertinent, I guess, I'm just trying to understand where the roadblocks might be.
The reason, well, just to give you an idea, the reason we didn't include all correspondence and everything is because it's just out of the norm for what we put in a packet. So we're sticking to what we typically provide. And seeing that there was a kind of an upfront issue of whether the board actually has the ability to hear the application,
Okay.
we were sticking to just highlighting this issue that without a code compliant proposal, it's hard for the board to get into actually hearing the proposal itself.
Okay.
This isn't a typical application that comes in because of the way it originated out of an enforcement action, which was with a courtesy letter that was sent. So typically staff, if we see a non-compliant issue or a compliance issue with the zoning regulations, we issue what we call a courtesy letter. It's really just to highlight that there is an issue, and we send that to the property owner. It's different than an actual enforcement letter or a violation letter that actually gives a timeline to abate the problem. This would be just highlighting that there is a problem, asking them to bring it into compliance with the zoning regulations, and giving them the opportunity to do that and suggesting a discussion, hopefully to get discussion with staff and help them resolve it. The next step typically would be a violation letter that lists an actual deadline to abate the problem, and then it proceeds down there. There's outline
Sure.
actions that happen based on how that goes that are in the code. So yes, like to answer your question directly, yes, there is other communication that we had. We do have a record of all of that.
And that's fine. I appreciate it. That's all. I was just one note that there had, that there had been quite a bit. That helps.
Well, and I was trying to clarify that this is because of the way it came in is how it got onto the agenda.
Right.
As it was then.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I would just, my fellow board members, that I appreciate the answer. I would be in support of option one, but I want the rest of you to have the opportunity
Yeah, we
to ask
got
your questions.
some
Of course.
questions.
I'm just letting you know where I stand. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions of staff? Okay.
I was just going to chime in as Dustin and I talked about this a little bit. The whole principle here is that design review follows zoning. So the applicant has a wide universe of choices to make as to how they comply with the zoning, and then once they've made that choice, then it'll be ripe for design review. But until they've decided how they want to deal with the zoning issue, it's kind of premature to put it in front of you guys.
Yep.
I would agree. Would the applicant like to come up? Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time and service to Downtown Salina. My name is Crystal Venters, and I'm the owner of Era Pilates and Fitness, located at 109 South Santa Fe. Is that all you need from me right now? Or you want me to continue?
You do whatever
Okay,
we need to do.
okay.
Like, you can talk to us. That's fine. We can have a
Awesome.
conversation.
Well, I just prepared this, so I want to read it just so I don't forget.
I understand.
I want to begin by saying clearly that my intention has always been to comply with the city's regulation and the downtown design guidelines. I am not seeking an exception. I'm simply asking for clear and consistent interpretation so that any revisions made are accurate and meaningful. Staff's own report confirms that the proposed wall sign is appropriate, proportional, and consistent with the previous bathtub sign. It also confirms that the window vinyl matches the building materials and does not obscure architectural features. The remaining issue is how the code applies when a single cohesive design must be divided across multiple window panes, a situation the regulations themselves do not specifically address. I have worked in good faith to resolve this by requesting clarification, submitting comparison photos from nearby storefronts located within the 100 block of Santa Fe, and providing a revised design option that reduces the overall coverage while maintaining privacy and safety for a predominantly female clientele. Today, I am respectfully asking the board to provide clear direction on how the window vinyl should be interpreted and measured, and to consider approval with reasonable conditions rather than requiring further redesign without that guidance. My goal is simple: to comply with the regulations while maintaining a safe, professional, and compatible storefront within our downtown district. Thank you for your
very much.
consideration.
I will let you know, just for clarifying, on the 8th, we did decide that those signs, it's not 6 individual, they are 2.
Okay.
There's 1 and 2. So I want to make sure you had that clarification from us.
I think that the biggest hurdle or obstacle is that I relied in good faith from a contractor who works within that district and has performed the exact same vinyl on other businesses, so I had no idea. I would have thought they would know the rules. If there were rules,
That's fair.
shouldn't the company we hired know the rules? And to this date, that company, Tiffany's here, has no idea what the rules actually are. And so the 50 square foot, does that include, we've asked this question, it hasn't been answered, does that include the entire storefront? We have additional windows upstairs as well, but were those not considered within that original measurement when you came out to measure? Or
Do you have kind of a better answer for that? I know it has to do.
So the 2/3, the 67, the sign regulations in the C4 district allow a certain sign area allowance based on the frontage of the building, but that is for the zoning lot. So you determine it for the lot itself, and in downtown, it's basically front and back because the buildings are side by side. The C4 sign district regulations only allow 67% of that sign area to be placed on any one building wall. So 2/3 of that. The sign allowance for the zoning lot is 75 square feet. So that was we provided a sign allowance sheet. Trying to find it. I believe it was in the January 8th packet.
It's, I think, 42 and 40, page 42 and 43.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So that walks through, that's something that we do fairly often for businesses when they need to know what they need for signage, and it gives some details on the property. So this is kind of bringing in the sign regulations and then looking at the zoning lot itself so we can apply them and then give an overview of what's allowed there. So this establishes that it's a C4 zoning district because the sign regulations are by zoning district. It tells what the building frontage is. Depending on zoning district, that might be building frontage or street frontage, and it just depends on the district.
Right.
So in the case of C4, it's building frontage. So it has 25 feet of building frontage on South Santa Fe, and you get 3 square feet per lineal foot of building frontage. So that's 75 square feet. Mm-hmm. And then you can have 67% on any one building wall. So that would get you to 50 square feet. So on the South Santa Fe frontage, you can have 50 square feet. That's not dependent on window area. The window area is an exemption from the sign regulations themselves. So it establishes there are certain signs that may be a sign by definition, but they're not a regulated sign. And there's a number of different, actually, let me see, I can point you to it where I've attached, they're in there, I think. I don't know where it's at in here in the packet right now. Basically, there is an exemption for window signs that are affixed to the interior of the window. They do not contain an advertising message, and they cover more than, so it's window signs affixed to the interior of a window that do not display an advertising message or cover more than 33% of the total window area on a wall. Keeping in mind this is under an exemptions, so anything that meets this definition would be exempt. So in order to figure out if a window vinyl is exempt from the regulations, it may still be a sign by definition. You still have to establish whether it's a regulated sign, whether it falls under the zoning regulations. Because if it's not, so an easy example is you pull into McDonald's and they have drive-through, small stuff. This is one of the other exemptions. Signs that are for directional purposes and are less than 5 square feet. I know I'm paraphrasing on that one. So small signs not exceeding 5 square feet in area. That's how you get like drive-through signs and stuff like that. And what that means is that they don't count against that sign allowance for a property. So square footage doesn't add up against that. When we look at the exemption, are you pulling that up? Thank you. So Margie has that pulled up on the screen. It's going to be hard to see because of the way the website's formatted. But that has kind of 3 qualifiers built into that one exemption, and it has to meet those to be an exempt sign. So the first one is location, or how it's applied. So it has to be applied to the interior of the window. The second one we don't actually use because there is federal case law that's came out since this code was written that one gets fairly close to a content neutral, the way we would look at it to get to whether it's an advertising message requires looking at the content. So we just delete that one out. It just isn't applied. It doesn't matter. And so I have a note here. So basically current professional planning practice in light of federal case law, this is a Reed versus Town of Gilbert case, prioritizes content neutrality in sign regulations. Therefore, while an advertising message is listed in the current code text, the Planning Division does not use the content or message of a sign as a basis for determining its exemption status. This ensures that the city's determinations remain defensible and focused on physical impacts, location and size, rather than speech. It's a First Amendment case, and so that's what that comes out of. Okay. The third factor is coverage. So it must not cover more than 33% of the total window area on a single building wall. So I found from Bath Pub, when Bath Pub was there, they did a facade renovation. It came before the DRB. They had scaled drawings, elevation, and a plan view of the storefront. So I went back through our records, and they were a plan that was brought before the board, so they were a public record at that point. I used those to take measurements of all the windows on the frontage, and that's a total of 259.46 square feet of window area on the front facade. The plan, as it was shown on January 8th, totaled 83.6 or something like that. At the end of the day, it is 24.26 23.34% of the total window area. So the window sign at Era Pilates is less than 33%. The issue is that that exemption requires that it be affixed to the interior of the window. So it doesn't meet that exemption.
'Cause
And
it's
that
on
is
the-
simply
it's on the
establishing.
exterior?
What was that?
It's on the exterior?
Yes.
Okay.
So what that means is that it is a regulated sign, and that sign area counts towards that 50 square feet.
Okay.
So that's what brought us back on January 8th, why we added that plus the wall sign.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the proposed sign area that exceeds the 50 square feet.
Okay.
So, earlier I said 83. That's the total with the wall sign.
Right.
So that's how you get there. I could answer in more detail if needed, but the sign regulations do get there's a lot to them.
Did that help provide you some clarification on some
Yeah,
of it?
yes, that did. It did.
Okay.
I did want to mention in the revision that Gleason and Son Signs sent me, that I sent on to the planning group. The attachment showed we're moving 11 inches from each of the window. So we're moving around 13 square foot from the windows. So that would keep the lettering and privacy, but then that wouldn't fall under, I guess that still wouldn't fall under is what he's saying, is if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah.
So then,
It's because it's attached to the front.
To
If
the
it was
front of the window,
Yeah, if it
yes.
was inside, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
that's what that, again, news to me, but that's good to know.
Yeah.
So if we can, moving forward, provide a revision, and I don't even know if how this vinyl works, if it can go inside. Our ultimate goal is to provide privacy.
I
We have a
understand that, yeah.
predominantly female clientele, as I mentioned, and we have women that feel very safe and comfortable in attire they wouldn't feel safe and comfortable with anywhere else. And we want to protect them
Mm-hmm.
and keep them feeling safe. And we do get a lot of window peekers. So
Sure.
I would like to not have that. Whatever option we need to do, we'll do. It was just clarity for me. So,
Okay.
and I would just like to get a sign up. I think it looks worse not having a sign than it does anything.
we understand the
So I would
frustration.
like to
We
get
do.
my actual sign up
Sure.
as quickly as I can, so.
I got a quick question for staff. If the white part of the sign was on the inside to provide screening, and then the actual words were on the outside, would that change anything with the amount of square, where you can count? Are we going to measure each individual letter and then come up with an analysis of square feet at that point? Would that change anything?
I think the words, now I might be wrong here, but I think the words are printed on the vinyl, and so
Just hypothetical. Because
typically on words, the standard practice is to draw a box around them, to draw a rectangular box around to where it meets the words on each side.
I see what he's saying. It's just a math question.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, it would just be, you'd be drawing on some of these panes, you'd be drawing a box around the words, and it'd be it's just a math problem at that point, depending on how
Right.
you do it.
you would essentially end up with a box as big as that white vinyl, though.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to is
Yeah.
once you draw a rectangular box around that and bring it down to where it touches the words on each side, and that's not just here, that's pretty standard practice for
Well,
dealing with words on signage.
where I was kind of going is that the white part on the inside would just be no different than a curtain, blinds, or something like that. Wouldn't have anything to do with the sign. And then the actual sign part would just be the letters on the outside of the window.
Yeah, that's true. I guess what I'm saying is in the application of the sign regulations, we would draw a box around that I think would result in you essentially having the same, even though they're on the outside and even though they're individual letters, when you draw a box around them, it's going to be about as big as that. Now there is a slight margin on those where you might save a couple square feet around the entirety of that across both sides of the storefront. But I think the simpler solution is printing the vinyl to where it's applied inside,
Right.
and then it's the same effect. Is what I guess.
I didn't know because I didn't know what type of window that was, and sometimes you try to put stuff on the inside. If the glass is tinted, then you can't even see it on the outside.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason I was
Yeah.
offering that as an alternative.
I get where you're
question.
going
So
with
that
it.
was the only reason.
Does the board have any other further questions of the applicant or staff?
I have a question of clarification. If this vinyl didn't have words on it, would we be talking about this?
We would not, if it doesn't meet the definition of a sign, you would still be reviewing it for the facade improvement, but you would not, you would be doing your normal review for aesthetics under the DRB, under the downtown design guidelines.
Okay.
So if it were not a sign, it wouldn't, if it doesn't qualify as under the definition of a sign, then it's not going to be a regulated sign, and that square footage doesn't count. It would be completely up to you to consider it under the guidelines. And then that kind of goes back to the purpose of making sure that an application meets the zoning regulations,
Right.
because the scope of the DRB doesn't really include interpreting the zoning code.
Thank goodness. I don't want to.
And that really just goes back to originally, like, there's a lot of, there's so many different ways they could meet the zoning code, and then once they do that, but some of those ways you guys might have you might have design issues with, so
Right.
we really just want to put that, get their choice on how they deal with that, and then you guys can look at it. Because there's some, you could just put cardboard boxes over the front of the windows, and that would meet the zoning code, but then you guys might say, hey, that's not really what we want downtown.
Sure.
Right.
Probably, yeah.
Your choice.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions of us?
No, I think I know now moving forward what
Okay.
needs to happen.
Okay.
So do I have a specific timeline that needs to?
What do you think would work best for you? Do you want to wait? Because we can set you out for the 26th, which is the fourth Thursday of this month, or we can set you out for the 12th of next month. I do believe that's.
If we do the 26th, is there a deadline for the company to get the review to you by?
Yes.
They would probably know the answer
Okay.
to that. Yeah.
So I'm trying to see if I have my schedule. Do you have the case schedule by any chance available? Or like the one with all the dates on it? I meant to print it and I didn't. We would have to receive the revised plans for the 26th. We would have to post the packet by Friday.
Right.
We actually post them on Thursdays, and so that means we're finalizing our staff reports on Wednesdays, which means we're writing them on Monday, and we need to be able to do the
Basically, a
review. So you end up having less than a week to get that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would suggest considering the next meeting to allow time, but if you think you can revise them in that time and get them to us, but
By
the only
Friday
thing
the
being-
20th? Friday the 20th or the?
That's when that packet
So-
goes out, so they'll need to have it.
Zoom
By
in
tomorrow.
By that-
on-
No,
Oh,
they
sorry.
they would need to have it by.
Okay.
The 20th?
Let me
So
look
up
at
here on
this.
the calendar,
Yeah. Well,
I think we can make that
here's
deadline.
February 26th.
so they need it by the 16th,
So
am I right?
the filing deadline for that is February 6th.
Okay.
And these timelines are
Oh,
brought down to about the minimum that we can, the fastest timeline that we can do. So it would be more appropriate to look at the February 20th filing deadline,
Okay.
which would lead to March 12th.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure you have the time. Because I noticed, I can see that you're wanting to comply. And I also appreciate and understand the need for privacy, especially for the women there.
Yes.
But I think we can probably, is there anybody online that would like to comment?
We have Leslie Bishop from SDI, and I believe we have Tiffany Nagel from Gleason and Son Signs.
Are there any comments from those on Zoom? Okay.
Looks like Leslie's trying.
Leslie's trying to.
She's muted.
Leslie, we can't hear you.
Turn the volume up.
How do I do that? In the
Just
room?
click that blue button. Over here, yeah.
Leslie, try again for us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say that, I fully support the design review board and the things that Eris Pilates and Crystal needs to do, but I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that Crystal wants to follow the rules and their Eris Pilates has been a great benefit and a great enhancement to downtown. So take that as you will, but I want to thank you for your time today. That's all.
Thank you, Leslie. Anybody else on the line that wants to comment?
The only other person online is Tiffany with
Okay.
Gleason.
Okay. Seeing no further comment, I'll bring it back to the board to discuss. I agree. I think option one.
I think option one.
Until the 12th of March. Yeah.
Yeah, and so appreciate you being willing to work
absolutely.
within all this, and yeah. So
Yeah.
I would move option one and move it to the March 12th
Okay.
meeting.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 And it has been approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Oh. On to, it says 3.1, I'm guessing 3.2.
3.2.
Yes. Okay, on to that one.
So item 3.2 was application CC 26-001, and that has been withdrawn by the
Yes.
applicant.
Okay, I
And so
didn't
we
see
will
that.
not be hearing that item
Okay.
today, but, yeah.
Okay.
No. Okay. So that will be postponed to a future date. They were in the process of working through the application. We discovered some other things that need some cleanup with
Okay.
that are going to be
Sure.
coming back as a different application
Yeah.
to include some other items. So
I saw you, I saw the emails you texted, so
Okay.
yeah. Okay, there's no administrative or preliminary items?
there's no other items. Your next regularly scheduled meeting will be February 26th, and we currently have no items submitted for that. So
Okay.
yeah.
Is Leslie still online or is there nobody online?
Leslie's left the room, but we do have Tiffany with Gleason if Tiffany wanted to speak. Other than that, we've got nobody else.
Okay. On that, if nobody's needing to comment, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.